Who's taking the roll?
Susan, can you take the roll?
Certainly. Board members Broward, Board member Hertzberg,
Here.
Board member Madrano,
Present.
Board member Peacock,
Here.
Board member Vasquez, Vice Chair Ruggo,
Here.
Chair Paris.
Here. Thank you.
We have a quorum.
Okay.
Just a note, Susan, I think you missed Jack Brower and Ernesto Medrano.
Oh, got my draw.
Oh, did you get Medrano? You missed Jack.
Yeah, Brower's here.
Thank you. I have them noted.
Thank you.
Jason, you want to lead the pledge?
Sure. Please face the flag, put your hand over your heart, and repeat with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any items on the consent calendar to be pulled?
Recording in progress.
No, sir.
I was wondering if we could maybe get a staff report on item 7, just for, it's on there, some items that would maybe apply to us.
Absolutely love to. You can remove that from the consent.
7. Also. Did you hear that? Okay, great. Is there a motion to approve all except 5 and 7?
So moved.
Second. Let's vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Aye. Oh, it's unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, could we get the identity of the moving and seconding party? Because I didn't quite catch it.
Brower moved.
Medrano second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. The item number 5 is a consideration of approval of professional services agreement with Bayshore Consulting. This is their annual contract. As with many of the items we went over today, this is the beginning of a new budget year, which starts July 1. So as a result, those contracts are setting themselves up for the next year. Bayshore Consulting is Barbara Boswell. Susan is the clerk who you're hearing on the line, as well as some of our procurement services with Cassie DeFalco, who's been working the RFP that we've been working with, a procurement attorney. So Bayshore Services provides the back office effort. So that's all the personnel services, the budgeting services, the accounting services, those types of things. So as well as board secretary and procurement effort as well. So this is their contract for this year to provide those services. And side note, they've done an amazing job getting us to this point. And I know as the work we have moving forward, they're going to continue to do an amazing job for us.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Ruggles will make the motion.
Second.
Hertzberg seconds.
Vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. CC 7.
Great. CC7, and thank you, Mr. Ruggles. We were planning on covering this in my CEO's report as well because it's very important. So the item before you today is a vendor communication policy that we've set. This is not a required policy, but it's good practice. As we're in the business of doing procurement currently, we have an RFP that is out soliciting suppliers for hydrogen. As you know, the business we're in will be out regularly looking for suppliers for fuel cells, technology, equipment, you name it. So this will be a regular occurrence. What's key in some of these requests for proposals and some of these procurement efforts is confidentiality is key and non-collusion is key. So when we look at the vendor communication policy, this identifies how we communicate as staff, but it's also how you communicate as board and how the vendors communicate with you as well, because there may be communication you may have, or you may want to engage in, there's communication that they might want to engage in with you. This sets the parameters for that. And then I'll let Allison jump in a little bit too. But I think the key is understanding that these processes are very complicated. They're very delicate as relates to compliance with not only federal law in some cases, but procurement law is state law. So we just want to make people aware to be very cognizant of who you communicate, when you communicate with them. And when in doubt, ask Allison. She'll be the great arbiter of what is right and what is wrong. I think that's what's key as it relates to this policy, and that's what we're doing today. Allison, did you want to add anything?
No, we mostly want to make sure that the board is aware and thoughtful and cognizant of the need to be careful during our procurement efforts. And if you have any questions or when in doubt, please do reach out to me.
Can I ask, what if there is communication that occurred without knowing, and then how do you report that?
You had communication without knowing that they were a proposer?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, if
reach
there's
out to me
something
and
like
we'll
that.
see what we need to do to remedy any issues that might exist.
Okay, thank you.
So if I get clarification, so we could communicate, but it's more along the lines of if they want to be a provider or pricing, stuff like that?
If they are proposing, then we would ask that you limit communication and certainly not discuss anything pertaining to the RFP, the scope of what we need, et cetera. So those are the topics that we want to really try and avoid. And for the avoidance of even the appearance of impropriety, avoiding communications entirely is best.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved. Hertzberg.
Is there a second?
Ruggles will second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, moving on to NB10.
Alexis will be giving the presentation on the budget.
The item before you is the same item and same budget that we discussed in detail at our last board meeting. If there's any questions, we're happy to answer about any specific line items. We also have Barbara Boswell, who's in Lancaster, that can assist with any questions.
Any questions? Is there a motion?
Brower moves.
Second.
I'll second Peacock.
Let's vote. All in favor?
We're going to need a roll call for a
Aye.
resolution. We need a roll call vote, please.
Yeah.
Thank you, Board Member Vespas. Board Member Madron.
Aye.
Board Member Hertz.
Aye.
Board Member Peacock.
Aye.
Board Member Brower.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruggles.
Aye.
Chair Paris.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Yes. See how we mirror each other. 11. Any speaker cards? None?
Did we do public comment on the last item? Do we need to?
Was there any public comment for the last item? Not seeing any. Let's move on.
Item 11, sir, this is very, very good news. So we've been working with multiple cities up and down the state, working with them to join us in this venture. So what started as the City of Industry and the City of Lancaster to form the agency is now adding a member, Fresno, the City of Fresno. One great thing about Fresno is not only are they joining as a city, they have a very entrepreneurial effort. They are a very large city, effective city. What they're doing, they also operate their own transit agency, so they are a buyer of hydrogen as well. So not only are they the procurer of hydrogen, they're also a opportunity for a stationary power source, as well as transportation needs through I-5, the 99 corridor, things of that nature that allow for operation for what we're trying to accomplish in the Central Valley as well. They are a great partner to work for. We're work with. We're looking forward to having them join. We're also actively out seeking other city members as well. And those, as many of you know, sitting on city councils, those take some time, but we're actively out there seeking other cities to be appropriate cities to be members. So Fresno is definitely an appropriate city, and we're looking forward to having them join the team.
Great news. Location is great too, right?
Yep.
Through the Central Valley, let's get it going.
Yep. They have a hydrogen production facility in Fresno. They have the use case for Fresno, and they are obviously a city in the same business as what we are as well. We've been in conversations with a number of them. We'll let their city councils and staff work with them. But yes, we have NorCal cities, SoCal cities in the Coachella Valley. So we're really trying to identify key cities in regional areas that matter to us.
Thank you. Any questions? Is there a motion?
Public comment?
Oh, any public comment? I'm from Lancaster. Now, is there no public comment? No.
Move. Medrano.
Is there a second?
Ruggles will second.
Let's vote. All in favor?
This is also a resolution and we need.
I'm a slow study. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Board Member Vasquez. Board Member Peacock.
Aye.
Board Member Brower.
Aye.
Board Member Madrano.
Aye.
Board Member Hertzberg.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruggo.
Aye.
Chair Paris.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Passes unanimously.
And Chair Paris, I do need us to do a roll call for CC6 because that was a resolution.
It was on the, okay. Let's pull 6 off the consent calendar.
So moved.
Is there a second?
That was Hertzberg.
Thank
Brower
you.
second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Peacock.
Aye.
Board Member Madrano.
Aye.
Board Member Hertzberg.
Aye.
Board Member Brower.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruggo.
Aye.
Chair Paris.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
In B12,
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you what we did today because I think the magnitude was great. There was a lot of things on consent calendar, as Rex mentioned. What those was actually establishing us as a formal, separate, complete entity, not only with employees, separate budgets, and completely independent of the city of Lancaster, which makes your board now employers of our staff. We currently have, I think you've met all of them, we have 6 staff that plan on joining us. I'm one of them, Alexis. I think you can stand up. We have some of them up in Lancaster. We got Paul, Ashley on vacation, Adrian up there in Lancaster, and of course our team with Bayshore Consulting as well as Barbara, our general counsel. So I'm excited to start the operation. Although we've been working together as a team, today marks a real milestone as it relates to where we're at as an independent agency transacting in the hydrogen space and looking forward to doing that. A couple things, update on where we're at. So as we reported last week, our RFP closed. We have narrowed those suppliers down to 22. Oh, I'm sorry, we had 22 suppliers participate. We've narrowed those down to 10. We are starting the interviews currently and actually this week and be over the next week or two identifying those partners. At the same time, in a parallel path, we're working with off-takers to identify that offtake. And at the end of the day, and it's becoming a very complicated process, which I can understand, or I'm sure you understand, is that matchmaking between supplier and off-taker is going to be a very challenging one, right? As we were looking at multiple demands on one side and multiple types of supply, multiple locations of supply, as we work through this process, it's going to be I guess nobody's done it yet before, so we will be in that process of doing that, and we're looking forward to that. All the suppliers we have are fantastic suppliers, multiple technologies, multiple volumes, multiple locations that provide a really good participation from many different industry leaders and different technologies. So we're looking forward to identifying those. And even some, which I think is really good news, that allow us to start contracting immediately, which is really good for us in the standpoint of it's not just new construction, but there's also existing product in the marketplace. So we're excited about what's moving forward. The narrative that we're telling, obviously, is going to be positioning First Public as a municipality. I think that's key. I think we have successes not only with the new member Fresno industry and Lancaster of having success in accomplishing energy infrastructure in a very good way with the 10 cities that we've already worked with as Lancaster and his team, but also the work that industry has done, and of course the work that Fresno is doing in their transit systems and their hydrogen efforts as well. So we've got a really good story to tell, and that narrative is moving forward. We approved the debt policy as well. We have debt with the city of Lancaster, but as we move forward, we anticipate there's an opportunity with this entity to do that. So as we move forward with this entity, we'll be developing some of the policies that are necessary to operate in an effective way, and those will be coming in the future times. The potential partnerships, I think we've talked about Fresno. We've also met with Loma Linda as a city, as an opportunity. They're not a necessarily large producer, but they could be an off-taker from a stationary power perspective as well as their fleets. And I think some of these stories that we're telling, we're sharing with some of these cities. It's kind of interesting to work with them to find out every one of them has a different demand, a different challenge, and a different model that we can support. So we're working with multiple cities. Was at their council meeting last week. As relates to outreach, Jack, myself, Lorraine will be at the conference. I don't know if Tanya, you can be there too, the 30th of June in Sacramento with the Greenhouse Gas GHC, Green Hydrogen Coalition, sorry. Not the Greenhouse Gas Coalition, but it was a G and an H. Yeah. Different topic. So we'll be up there joining them, not only meeting with some of our legislators up there as well while we're there, but also engaging with the marketplace in that area as a marketing and outreach. We are regularly and consistently working with off-takers and suppliers, so hopefully you'll see some progress in the next month as it relates to some, hopefully, contracts moving forward and some partnerships deepening as we go out in the marketplace. So we're actively doing that now. And our next board meeting is July 17th. So happy to serve you, and we're excited for the future of this organization. I think we're going to be absolutely successful. And as we move forward, your leadership is going to be key in that. Oh, Bob's going to be there on the 30th too, right? Up in Sacramento, I believe. Maybe not. He doesn't know that yet. Maybe he does. Sorry about that.
Can we ask questions about?
Yes, of course.
Did this stop working? I don't know. Can I ask questions about the RFP and how you are communicating with the respondents, and in particular, those who you haven't selected? Do you have them in reserve? You told them that they're not going to be able to participate, or how have you communicated with them?
Right. So the strategy now is to communicate with top 10 and interview.
Okay.
Right. Nobody is excluded. They're all very qualified. They're all they're successful. They're real. They're tested, whatever you want to call it. Right. So they're vetted. We have some that we've identified as the top that we're setting up interviews over the next week or two, and that'll be direct communication and interview process. Very similar to a job interview, more focused questions, detailed questions, things of that nature, and a direct communication. And then the others, as we move through that process, we'll be communicating with them all. Just the top 10 are going to be at a better level or a different level. Yeah. And so that'll be oral communication. And the ones we haven't selected yet, we're reaching out to saying, you're still part of the mix. We'll keep in touch, kind of a thing.
Okay, so you are communicating with them then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, they came in 2 weeks ago. We started communicating this week, so there may be, if there's people out there saying, hey, I haven't heard anything, we're outreaching as we speak.
When's our estimate that we think will be signing agreements timeline?
So the goal, and we've met with the mayor on this specifically and directly, because he's, to a certain extent, Lancaster has been supportive of this agency. We hope to be under contract with supply by December of this year, so 6 months is the timeline we've given ourselves. And that is not only in contract, it may not be contracts enough to sustain ourselves long-term, but hopefully by December as well, that we have visibility to that long-term revenue. Because you're going to see two different transactions happening, one that are going to be some immediate transactions that are going to be current, And there's going to be some long-term transactions that are, as it relates to new construction, those obviously take time to build, and they also take time to generate revenue. So if we see visibility of those contracts, we're prepared to finance that structure through that period of time to get to that revenue perspective. So we're setting 6 months as our goal.
And how long after that would off-takers be receiving product?
Well, depending upon early contracts, we can do those very soon, depending on what the type of contracts are and the vendors we've selected. As it relates to long-term contracts, a lot of them are 2 years and 3 years out to construction. And then they wouldn't see a molecule for 2 years.
I have a question while you're doing that.
I come
You guys
from
are
the
much more
legislature. Yeah, we
formal.
respect
They're
the
polite
chair.
than your other members. Yeah.
Much more formal than Lancaster.
Just, can you give us a little insight into, excited about the Fresno relationship? You said they're already working the space. Can you give a little bit of insight into what they're doing and what it looks like?
Yeah, so Fresno has a number of buses. They have their own transit agency, right? So they provide their own transit services. They are, like every other city and other transit agency, required to go zero emissions, or they were required to go zero emissions.
Right.
But as we're finding out that everybody's still planning on
Doing
going
it
zero
anyway,
emissions,
yeah,
yeah.
of course.
So they have the same requirements and constraints. Them, unique as a city, has their own transit, so it's kind of a unique opportunity. They're providing their own services. So they are in that process. They're buying fuel now from a local vendor, and that volume isn't going to be large enough to handle what they need in the future. So we're working with them to develop that. They also, I think, have interest in the stationary power component of what we're doing, because they're a growing city, as you know. They're in the Central Valley, like any other Central Valley city. There's more demands for energy in those areas, so we'll be working with them on stationary power as well.
What does that mean? You help them construct it, finance it? What does that mean?
Stationary power, the way we envision stationary power is we would engage, right now there's a power demand in the systems, whether that be data centers or logistics centers. We see them, I was talking to Newell about a new construction going in industry. Those typically have energy demands that, one, either can't be met by the existing infrastructure or the existing grid, or it can't be met economically, or it can't be met in time. So we are actively working to identify technologies that exist that use hydrogen to power those facilities, either from a demand management perspective or from a completely off-grid perspective. So that we would then, in partnership with our member cities, be owning, financing, operating electrical assets that are powered or fueled by hydrogen on the behalf of all of our member cities.
Question is, can you just give me some insights on your business model? I mean, obviously, we've got to pay back the city the loan that they gave us, and we've got to be self-sustaining. Share with us your thoughts about what that revenue stream looks like, and how do we make a profit, but at least to sustain our existence and expand?
Correct. So if you look at the budget we put together, it's about a $4.4 million budget. So when you think about how much revenue we need to generate at least that for the operations we're doing.
Right.
As a public utility, we are unable to charge profit, right? So we have to justify our services as it relates to a reimbursable cost of operation. So we envision that being that as we develop systems, as we develop contracts, in those contracts, is going to be an operational expense that covers the cost of our procurement, our operations, and things like that. So, and it'll depend on type of molecule. Are we transporting? Are we fueling? Is there fueling assets? So each one of those business models is going to have an operational cost associated with it, and then that'll be tacked on to those costs of services. Very similar to the utility model that every city uses. We have an operational cost that is disclosed publicly, I think, which is what's key to our success when we talk about the narrative we're telling, is this is a transparent agency. So you see our budgets, you see everything we do, and then you'll see that transaction on the molecule side. The same token is true that as scale, right? When you get scale, the operational cost, if you're selling it, it's going to cost you the same amount of money to sell 1,000 kilograms as it is going to sell 10,000 kilograms, right? So you start getting scale as more people join as well. When we start seeing some of these assets get delivered and built, the scale and the value of that is going to increase on their behalf as well. So it really is a partnership and a public utility. Yeah, yeah, and
Overhead is low.
right, and we've been very key on being tight, right? So Lancaster has been supportive of us, right, up to this point. There was initial $2.6 million loan that was offered by the city of Lancaster. We've gone through about 1.5 of that in the last 6 months. So when you look at our burn rate over the next 6 months, when you talk about when we're going to deliver, we're looking at about $1.5 million annual burn rate. Our budget doesn't reflect that, but we can have levers in that budget to make sure we accelerate or decrease based on what we're looking at. And then the hope is to develop these revenue streams as we get moving.
Going back to the RFP, I'm just thinking about the volumes that you expect to be procured. Like, is there a target range in terms of volumes? Because of course, it depends on offtake agreements, but it's just, how are you thinking about that?
And that's one of the challenges, and I'll let you guys jump in too, because maybe I'm hogging all the time. Part of the challenge is some of the supply we had are based on volumes. Yeah, how are you? You sneak in, my back's to you. Some of them are based on volumes, like this price exists if you get this volume. So that's part of the tricky puzzle part of it, right? And then others are maybe a little more simpler, right, as relates to merging supply and demand. So the short is all of them are different. The goal we have, if you look at operational costs, like if we set goals for ourselves when we do our business planning, and that's 6 months mention, if we're looking at kind of a goal of covering $4 million, right, in costs, you look at 10,000 tons of hydrogen at 40 cents, which is a minor fee on top of it, it covers our operation, right? If it's 20,000 tons, it's 20 cents a kilogram. So you start looking at that from a value perspective. Our goal is that 10,000 tons to get to that point, which I think that's not our goal. I mean, it's our operational goal, right? I think eventually there's more in that marketplace, and one or two will get us there pretty quickly. One or two contracts will get us there pretty quickly.
So theoretically, our operational costs, since they're built in, if we gain more suppliers and more off-takers and that grows and grows, obviously our costs stay the same. I mean, there might be more work, maybe a little bit more, but that price that we charge for that offtake could go down.
Potentially, as we operate as a general entity. Now that depends on the workload that goes with more volumes, right? If we're transporting that, there's a heck of a lot more work that goes into transporting it. As we start talking about stationary power, now you've got contracts with people maintaining fuel cell systems and storage systems and things of that nature. So yes, in theory, but at the same token, the operational costs are going to increase with that increased volume as well. To what extent? Is it one-to-one? Probably not likely, but it's going to scale together. And then operationally, as revenue starts, then new business lines are going to start as well, right? Then we have those opportunities to start developing other business lines in conjunction with the services we're providing.
We talked about a variety of technological approaches for making the hydrogen that you selected in the top 10. Any idea about the carbon intensity that you think the average might be? Is there any pricing according to carbon intensity, anything like this that you're considering in this whole RFP?
Well, Lorraine's thinking through. I throw off the cuff. She has to think about what she says. She actually thinks before she speaks. When you look at pricing, all of them are great. They're in the market.
Okay,
that makes
they're
sense.
in the market.
They're in the market. We're not going to be specific about it, but it's good news,
Okay.
right? We didn't select anybody that was out of the market, right?
Okay.
Unaffordable. And the key there is, one, the question we had before was, does 45E impact that? That question was asked in the RFP. What is the federal funding? How does that have an impact on your pricing? We've asked that question, and they've either said it does or it doesn't, or this price is based on that. And then we also have the LCFS credits, and that conversation about LCFS is, where does LCFS fit in this? Is this price based on you keeping LCFS, or is it keep on the off-taker keeping LCFS? So we've calculated all those in that system. Each of those is different. Obviously, the CI score is going to impact the LCFS. So not all of them are, it's a low carbon fuel standard, and it's an incentive that's on the distributor end or the dispenser end of the fuel. So if you dispense, then it's like AVTA operates at a profit. They have an LCFS for electricity buses as well.
What it is, I just want the record to be correct.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, so then carbon intensity is going to be
It's part of the story. We
Yeah.
didn't select 100% green, zero
Yeah.
CI. We're trying to build this marketplace.
I'll add in, on the RFP, there was a matrix that outlined how we scored each one of these proposals. So the suppliers all had visibility on how we would account for carbon intensity.
Oh.
And it was a part of our scores that we had for each of the proposers.
Did you actually require any particular means of calculating CI?
We did, we went with the GREET,
California GREET?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
However, we left it flexible. They could include any additional information if they chose to.
Confused. We're aggregating the demand and the production, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't perform.
Don't perform.
Yeah, I mean, those are the contractual relationships we're working through now, right? We have our attorneys on board. We have Allison working on the case. We have other multiple procurement attorneys that are working this space, as well as hydrogen-specific attorneys. We've dealt with this in the electricity space as well, so this is not new. Very similar. It's a little different in the sense that the electricity is still going to get delivered to you if you don't perform, right? So this is a little different. If you don't perform, you don't actually get hydrogen. So it's a little different, but the concepts are the same in the contractual relationships, whether it be liquidated damages or penalties associated with non-performance. And those will be calculated in those contracts. But there still may be non-performance. So then you also have opportunities for hedging as relates to performance on because we have a responsibility to perform. We can't just say they didn't perform. It's going to be our responsibility to perform. So we're going to strategize other opportunities to match demand where others may fail, if that makes sense. So it's a legal strategy, but then there's also an operational strategy associated with that we have to develop based on supply. And then, of course, there's financial implications if you don't perform. And then as it relates to new construction, we've envisioned a very heavy and detailed construction inspection process. So it's not going to be typical of I shouldn't say typical. A lot of times it's like if you don't get a road done in a week, then, okay, you get traffic for another week longer. This is if you don't deliver fuel, we need to know it ahead of time. So that means it's going to be a different level of inspection as relates to we need to go see the electrolyzer getting manufactured if you're electrolytic hydrogen. So we need to see your invoices that you've ordered these things at the delivery time. So there's going to be a much more detailed process as it relates to inspecting these new construction projects in this case.
So is there like a buffer or some kind of redundancy if suppliers can't meet demand and off-takers need that demand?
Well, the goal with the inspection is to have visibility to that. So it won't be a surprise. It won't be, you're going to deliver a molecule 2 years from now. I guess this is in theory the way it should work. We expect you to deliver a molecule 2 years from now. We're going to know in 6 months whether you're going to do it or not, right? We're not going to wait till 2 years and say, I can't deliver. Now, you may have everything in the ground and you're waiting on the fire permit to sign or something like that. Okay, that's going to be a couple days. We may get that, right? But we'll know ahead of time from a delivery perspective if your electrolyzers are ordered, communicating with the city your project's in to make sure that they see your timeline, that they've got it approved. If it's in zoning and planning still, we got to identify that, how long that's going to take. So we're just going to have a much more detail. So hopefully there's no surprises.
Is there like any volatility, kind of like oil production where they shut down or have issues with production?
Absolutely, that's going to have to be part of the story as well. They could have malfunction or shut down or, a battery on an electrolytic project breaks or a storage unit that fails or 1,000 different things can happen. Those are all trying to be accounted for in the contracts.
And is there a possibility of some suppliers having a lot left over that they could fill in for these kinds of hiccups in the road?
Right. That is the puzzle that's difficult,
Yeah.
right? I mean, this has never been done. So I think
I'm just
blazing
thinking
new
of on the
trail.
electric side, you could perhaps offer a spinning reserve type of payment to someone that they would agree to come in and give another 10,000 this year if you don't get everything or something like that.
I think there's ways to mitigate it not only that way, but
Yeah.
also if you have suppliers that, say it's Foothill Transit and you got Sunline Transit and Foothill's got excess capacity, can we run that to Sunline instead of there, if as it relates to ebb and flow of the dispatching
Yeah.
system and everything else. So there's multiple ways you mitigate against it. But those are going to be challenges we have to solve. But we've contemplated having to solve them.
There's not really much storage built in to anything, correct?
The store, the way it's operating currently, there is no, how would I say, regional storage? It's more like the transit agency you represent. Foothill Transit has a large storage fueling system, right? They've got a large storage for themselves. So they have storage, but there may be another site, maybe Fresno, who's running 3 or 4 buses now, they're not gonna have a large storage capacity. So we're gonna have to balance it. It is really a puzzle that is gonna be very difficult for all of us to kind of figure out.
Until the market gets big.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Jason, regarding the market and the questions around our budget and for, and I'm assuming that we're also checking on what the state demand for hydrogen is, and how is that accounting for the next forecasting, I'm assuming the next 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, I'm not sure how you guys, working for, so that we can estimate more or less, what our revenue is gonna be and how much we're spending, so we can also secure the longevity of, our exciting adventure together.
Absolutely, it is an adventure. So what the process that we're going through is first is, well, in parallel, we've got the supply. What exists in the supply side, and that's what we're doing now. And then you've got the demand side. So we're working with all these agencies, giving us your load profile.
Got it.
So we go through them and say, and, there's estimates, the Arches has done many estimates, CT has done many estimates, the state's done it, DOE's done, there's estimates out there. But those change based on availability of vehicles, you go down the list. So this demand scale, or this load profile we're trying to acquire, is saying how much you need today, how much you need tomorrow, how much you need 5 years from now. And then we'll try to fill that with the supply we have. That's the matchmaking process. And that gives us visibility. When we talk about 10,000 tons, there are, depending on loads, right, there are some heavy users out there that easily take up the 10,000 tons that we talked about.
Are you getting those numbers from like some
Yeah.
sort of a state estimate and different metrics?
It's one of our benefits to the off-takers for us to have alternate supply. So as you mentioned,
Yeah.
if something goes down, we also are taking into account the flexibility of being able to move around. And that's kind of the benefit of having First Public Hydrogen aggregating that demand. But we absolutely intend on including substitute supply, addressing it in our contracts that we have with our suppliers and off-takers to hopefully alleviate some of those delivery issues. We know it's a pain point for the industry.
Yet, isn't So, just so I understand this. On one hand, we have the people building the hydrogen facilities to make hydrogen, right? And most of them haven't even been built yet. That's correct? Do we have a role in funding those people or getting them
We did not contemplate that in the RFP. I think there's some that are out there that are mature enough now that they have financing. That was part of the questions we asked, is where you're getting your money. I think in the future, we provide a unique opportunity, depending on tax code, as well as municipal finance, that we can partner with them in the financing of these assets as well. So we have the capability to do that. We didn't want to layer that on top of all the other layers, things that we just talked about. So they have, if they're in the space now, they have their own financing already in place because they've gotten this far. So they're not saying, I got a great idea, I need money. They have a great idea and they have money, they just need the offtake. And so then we'll present it. Now, eventually, as Jack said, right, there are going to be sewer plants and cities that are making their own hydrogen and supplying themselves with hydrogen. So the technology allows for these unique opportunities in this space.
other hand, you have the people that are using the hydrogen, and most of
Correct. So we have contemplated and are working towards that now, where you can actually contract the equipment with the fuel. So depending on the fuel pricing and other things like that, we can actually be a facilitator of the equipment in this space as well. We're evaluating that. Some of the off-takers we've talked to have requested that. So we have engaged in that conversation before. Now that we have pricing, we're engaging deeper in those conversations so that we'd be providing a fuel and equipment, hydrogen as a service.
Yeah, and it seems to me that this facilitation is the right word in this new market, this new industry, right? And the genius of this group, because obviously the big challenge is when you say people have financing, one of the great problems in my experience in doing some startup companies is you got to have a customer, you got to have a contract, right? And they say, well, we'll give you the money, but do you have a customer, right? You got that chicken and egg problem.
Yep.
And so to the extent we're a facilitator on both sides of the trade to help make that happen, we help, even if some of the entities already have some level of financing on their whole financing model, because we end up getting them an off-taker in that, as we say in Yiddish, the shidduch. I don't know how to spell that for those people in the public that are listening to this, but it's an important word in my community.
Yes.
And Jason, in terms of partnerships and customers, what are some of the cities or entities that you're looking into? Like in the more immediate, I know you probably have a very large list.
Right.
But what are some of the main top cities that you're looking into establishing a partnership?
Right, so
Or a
early,
relationship.
early users are gonna be transit and ports, right, they're using currently, and they're kind of leaders, the anchor tenants, so to speak. When we look at the municipal fleets, stationary power, we're looking at selected cities and regional areas that are impactful, right? They could be one, they're large enough and entrepreneurial enough to transact in the hydrogen space, whether that be electricity, and they all have fleets, and their proximity to transit corridors, so for fueling opportunities and things of that nature that cities can partner in. So we're not, I guess we'll work with any city, but we're identifying those cities who kind of fits a certain kind of profile that works in the total space collectively with cities.
So for example, Long Beach, Los Angeles.
Right, so we were starting with industry, obviously, as the LA foothold, and I think they provide a unique spacing and location. We're talking in the Coachella Valley with cities. We're looking in San Diego County for partners, cities to join. We've got up in the North Bay and East Bay, South Bay, the Salinas Valley. So we've got, we're looking at these key locations, whether it be on the 101, the 5, the 99, the 10, the 680, 580, whatever we're looking at, we have these key locations that we're trying to identify. And not only as potential fueling systems, the demand from a stationary power side, they're growing, right? They've got growing areas, and they're entrepreneurial.
Explain what a stationary power source looks like or how it operates?
And depending on scale, they are a container ship, shipping container. And depending on the amount of storage and demand they would have, you could potentially have a tube trailer sitting right next to it and being exchanged, or you'd have a stationary storage vessel. It's typically going to be a fuel cell system. I mean, they have some linear generators and things like that, but fuel cell system that will be probably a large tank that's very low pressure, likely from a safety perspective, and that would be fueling that fuel cell that would fuel the electricity of the building. And it'd be integrated with solar and battery. So it wouldn't just be a fuel cell and hydrogen, it'd be solar, battery, fuel cell, and hydrogen collectively. Solar and battery are going to be your cheapest energy, so you'd want to use the hydrogen as least as possible from a demand management and use case, because that's going to be your most expensive power.
We have a vendor that's able to come in and say, okay, we can hook this up.
There's multiple suppliers that do it. We don't have them under contract yet. We've talked to a number of them, but that technology does exist and it's readily available.
Anybody that's actually putting it together, so it's a turnkey operation? What is the amount of time it takes for them to deliver?
Again, that depends, right? So we're working with some on the data center side that have data center opportunities at a very large scale. And they're different technologies too. Some could be SMR units, not just fuel cell. Then we have some that are mobile fuel cells, so really like plug and play opportunities that exist currently that use, when we talk about new hydrogen, the hydrogen industry is not new. And Lorraine reminds us this all the time. This has been a 60-year industry, right? Jack's been doing hydrogen for how many years now, Jack, right?
He was 11.
Yeah, since he was 12. He had dreams as a boy during doing hydrogen. Is that it's the application side of it, right? How do we get new projects built by aggregating demand, and then how do we get new systems implemented by the services we provide? But the fuel cells are active and available, and the technology works, and everything works. And there's companies that do it. Now, pricing matters in that scenario. So when we do our RFP to see pricing, that allows us to compare that to a price of an electron, And then that's what's missing too, is that market, that price of the hydrogen to get the electron.
Yeah, but what you get out of this, let's just use the data center example, by having the mixture of these various other renewables plus hydrogen, you get certainty in an environment where the electricity is very problematic with the various investor-owned utilities or municipal utilities and all the demand that they have because us rat-finks in government basically put all these requirements for electricity on everything under the sun. And we're not going to, you know, there's real arguments about whether we have the ability to meet that. So you're supplementing that in a pretty elegant way.
And
That
then
seems to be the
depending
big
on
picture.
Depending on how the fuel cells integrate in a data center setting, a lot of times they have natural gas generators as redundant backup.
Right.
If you integrate a fuel cell, then you have zero emission, and now it's not a backup, it's a demand management asset as well. So now you not only have this asset that you've paid for that is used now as a demand management tool, which allows you to lower your price of energy, where a gas turbine doesn't, because you can't run that gas turbine for a demand management perspective, you run that as an emergency operation. From an air quality perspective, specifically, some air quality districts allow it, but for the proximity, not many in California though.
And I would just add, there are examples of hydrogen microgrids that are, some have been in operation for quite a while. The famous one everybody always refers to, the Stone Edge Farm microgrid in California has been operating since 2012, and that's a multi-technology microgrid that includes hydrogen and batteries and solar panels. And then there's some other ones around, you know, PG&E's Calistoga Resiliency Center is one that's being worked on, the SoCalGas hydrogen microgrid in Downey. So there are examples that are operating and can be visited. And the other thing I want to say too, sometimes it's the demand management services are more lucrative than the delivery of the energy. That can be the most valuable part of the microgrid. And could you explain? Just depending upon, you know, if there are periods of high demand on the grid and low, you know, lack of a dearth of supplies, if you can either, you know, depending on what's happening on the grid, if you can either put power on or take power off and get paid for that, providing that service can be valuable.
Really valuable. It's a very smart thing. Yeah, turn your washer on at midnight when, you know, it's less expensive, and all the technology that allows that to occur is really a smart approach. There's 100 examples of those things.
I think we met with a vendor yesterday, or an off-taker that is using that tool and done the calculations, and at certain points, he said it was close to 50 cents a kilowatt hour at certain peak periods in their location. So now you're providing energy, your competitive cost that you have to beat is 50 cents a kilowatt hour, right? It's not 4 cents a kilowatt hour, right? It's 50, which makes that metric of using hydrogen a much more valuable prospect.
Oh, and in certain jurisdictions, there are demand charges.
Right.
Okay, and these are a little more complicated than this. They are based upon certain times of the year. So you have a summer demand charge, and you have a winter demand charge, you have a spring demand charge. And those demand charges depend upon the peak demand that you had for any given hour during that last month or that last quarter or whatever period they aggregate over. And if you can manipulate your demand so that it occurs in off hours instead of during the peak hours, your monthly or quarterly or annual charge for the peak demand can be eliminated or reduced very substantially. And these can be millions of dollars that a facility can save by manipulating this, using the hydrogen just at the right moment. Couple of hours here, and then all of a sudden the peak shifts to a different rate structure. It's very interesting how you can do this.
Well, it sounds like something like AI would kind of.
Right.
Oh,
Exactly.
you can definitely do this with computational methods, for sure.
Yeah, and it goes to your profitability and the value of what proposition that you have, because if you could add this, as you were suggesting, to the service that we're providing, all of a sudden, the apples to apples comparison in terms of what we cost, because we add in this dimension to lower your cost, could be extraordinary. Like, you know, just another way to be on the cutting edge of what we're doing.
From my perspective, this is the main way that the stationary power will be introduced in this current market. You got to provide that value for the electricity rate structure savings. Okay,
Right.
somehow like that. In the end, we also need it for resiliency though, okay? Because we have so many places that are gonna start to become difficult to get the electricity to because of electrification of buildings, electrification of transportation, data centers going in. It's getting, it's gonna start to be, hey, over here, we cannot do it. It's gonna be too expensive. Okay, now it might be less expensive to deliver hydrogen and have fuel cells or gas turbines run on that, so. That's gonna be later. It's not right now.
Right.
My concern is that, I mean, it doesn't seem like it's rocket science. Okay, maybe it is rocket science.
Check.
But, it's a company that's just starting to rise. And the tendency is to not want to look too far because we're so busy here. But here is where we're going to make the money. If we're going to be able to do this for hydrogen throughout the state, it's going to take a great deal of money. It's also going to take a great deal of planning so that the moment we can capture that income stream, we have to be in a position to do it. And especially like the software. I mean, if we're providing that also, if we can become a one-stop shop, I mean, it's just a no-brainer. But I also understand that there's only,
It's 24 hours in a day. What are you talking about?
We have you guys too. You're part of this team as well. That's very important to this operation as well.
Come on, are you serious? I'm out of here. I don't take Sunday off.
I mean, I'm just seeing one income stream after the next that is available.
No, absolutely. We're aligned to do that. But first and foremost, none of it works unless you have an affordable, reliable molecule.
That's right.
And that's priority number one. And that's what this RFP does. And then everything builds on that. And so that's priority number one.
Can I ask
So we're
every,
there already.
We gotta, there's work we have to do.
Legalities.
portability is at the time.
Yeah.
But we're there. The numbers are good in the RFP.
And can I ask kind of a somewhat tangential question about arches, right? We know the Trump administration has expressed some opinion, right? We know we're in the game. I know that there's, I just wanted to get your update on what that looks like. Because I look at this thing, my view, and one of the reasons I joined this board, aside from getting my arm twisted, but beyond that, I actually believe in the mission, but it really is entrepreneurial. And I think we're going to be at the center of all calls. Everybody's going to come to us. Is there excess hydrogen someplace? What about this? What about that? We are going to be the place where information is collected, and it's going to have an extraordinary impact on our importance. I just wanted to get a sense, any updated report you may or may not have with respect to what's happening, Arches. I know we had the federal issues in that regard and what that looks like. Do you have any insights in terms of Arches and our relationship to it? Is there at some level or in the market to trying to do this, and what are your thoughts on that?
Right. We continue to work closely with them, no question about it. We are all in this together, right? All the transit agency, all the ports, us, what we're doing, stationary power opportunities, the IGs, everybody. I mean, everybody's in this together. We have to work together. So we're continuing that effort. As it relates to 45V, I think you guys probably maybe have a better experience in that. That's probably not likely going to survive, right? The opportunity. They've done some little extensions that allow projects to get built by this time or that time. They can get it, but for the most part, it's gone.
Is there any money going into these projects now from what was distributed from Arches? Do you know? I don't know how much money was actually distributed.
The way I understand Arches, and I'd leave it to them to better speak to themselves, but they've got the first tranche of funding, which I think was about $30 million.
Yeah.
And then the next tranche, the next budget cycle is going to be the next level of funding. And that's going to be whether the Trump administration plans to fund the hydrogen hubs. And I think that's not in the big, beautiful bill. That's a different piece of legislation that they would have to either pull back those funds or continue with those funds. And I have not been engaged in that process.
I don't know any Republicans that are thinking a lot about that.
No, and when you look at 45V, it's on the 356th page and it's one sentence, so they're not looking at that much either.
And the House and Senate bills are identical.
Yeah,
So they're not even thinking about changing anything, really.
Yeah.
But it is important to note too, that projects that start construction by the end of 2025 can claim the tax credit for 10
For
years.
10 years.
For 10
Correct.
years. So there's a lot of developers are trying to get
And they
started.
just have to start construction
Basically
before
safe
December
harbor
this year.
their projects,
Yeah.
yeah, and they get it for 10 years.
So is it,
Timing is aligned very well with that, by the way.
Yes.
so is
Yes.
it shovels in the ground, or is it?
Constitutes construction.
We looked it up. It's the same tax code that deals with solar and wind and the whole 9 yards. So they have a very robust concept of what that means, and it's concrete and grading, and there's defined in the tax code. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's fully vetted over years of
Yeah.
operation.
It's also commissioning of very specific equipment that's been designed for the project. There are various ways to safe harbor the tax code, the tax credit.
Say it again.
I've talked to a lot of project developers who are getting opinions from their attorneys on what means begin construction. So it doesn't necessarily have to be concrete or steel in the ground. It could be commissioning some equipment that is specifically designed for that project.
A transformer on site, a solar farm, okay, which is not necessarily hydrogen producing equipment, but it's made for the hydrogen producing equipment. Various things.
And there's things in the wind industry they used to do, like go buy their turbines, and they'd call them safe harbor. Once they bought the turbines, then they could start grading and everything else. But they bought them, that safe harbored their tax credits, in essence.
It's been used like by thousands of people. Okay, so it's established ways of doing it.
But what are we doing to leverage that? I mean,
Our RFP and providing us an off-taker for them.
Yeah.
Because they can safe harbor whatever they want. If they can't sell it, they're not gonna have a project. So we provide the opportunity to come in and have a contract that they can actually go finance it and get it done. Because safe harboring is one thing, you gotta take money out of your pocket and go buy stuff. And that's the risk profile. Safe harboring doesn't mean you don't have to spend money, you have to spend money, but what we're providing, how we're leveraging that is being ready from a timing perspective with some of these off-takers that need that tax credit. Or some of these suppliers that need that tax credit.
so Arches owes us how much?
The city of Lancaster has a $3 million loan to them. Yeah. I'd have to look at the document, but they have time. There's milestones in there as well.
The repayment is due in 2026, as I recall.
Oh, thank you. The agreement states that they'll pay it out of the funds that they receive from the feds, so there may be risk if those funds don't come
I
true.
thought they received $30 million. Why don't I have a check?
Yeah, the contract is reimbursable expenses, so they don't get any federal funds until they spend, okay? And that's why the $3 million was necessary. They had to start spending. So my understanding is they're being reimbursed by DOE now, so there should be some ability, probably not to pay back the whole amount, but some ability to pay back now, but it's due only in 2026, so they're probably not going to pay you until it's due. So, but they have to be banking money now of the reimbursable amounts that they're getting from DOE to pay back the city. So,
Would it be reasonable, I'm just thinking about your other hat you wear, Mr. Mayor. But it would be reasonable to at least ask them
Yeah.
what their plan is to make sure it gets reimbursed. Obviously, they have to spend it to get back. We
Yeah.
know the feds work, but do you have a plan rather than us waiting to find out in 2026 you spent all the dough,
yeah,
right? I mean, that's not our question, but that's a question for
Yeah,
our
I agree.
benefactor.
Allison, would you write that letter for me, please?
Certainly.
And
let
just
me,
to clarify, that's what the city of Lancaster.
yeah,
said.
I know, that's not anything to do with
that's
this
it.
board.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention one or two additional things. Since you asked, Bob, about the money going to any projects, the $30 million that was granted, again, in a reimbursable contract to Arches, was for planning phase only. Now, there may be some support of individual projects that occurs by Arches staff actually assisting with, analysis that supports permitting, that supports whatever, but there's not really much direct funding to any project. So it's like, not much funding directly to any project. Which would be hard to figure out which projects to give money to and everything anyway. So if people are asking about it, it's really because this is the planning phase that has been approved only. And there's a go, no-go decision that is in December 2025 that says we're going to proceed with funding the hub or not. Okay? That's a DOE regular process, go, no-go decision. Congress is going to have to, act eventually, and we don't know what that is yet. I don't know.
Well, my only curious mind question, it's none of my business at some level, except for my friend to get his money back. But beyond that, you're going to go spend $30 million to plan, and you know that it's DOA. Why spend any money if it's over?
No, I know.
Right?
I know.
That's why I was trying to get some clarity. I don't pay
Yeah.
attention to what the Trump administration is doing in that regard. I don't have enough time. But if that's happening, what's the play look? I don't know. I'm just
but
asked the question.
Let me just say, there were a
Yeah.
lot of questions in the early days of the Trump administration, but then there's been some clarity provided by Secretary Wright himself that we're funding the hubs.
Okay.
What that means from my perspective is phase one is safe. So in other words, the 25 million is coming and you're going to get paid from those monies. That's what it had to be spent on, okay? On the other hand, it's probably quite likely that there will be some critical review in the go, no-go decisions, and Congress is going to act in a way that something's going to happen in phase two. I don't know if it's going to be supported or not. We'll have to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Okay.
I mean, we're just in this uncharted territory of all this stuff going on, and
Yeah.
just try to get a better, understanding the architecture of what's happening,
I heard that Musk took his chainsaw back to Tesla with him. So things are a little better. All right. Anything else we need to know?
Ooh. Thank you. I love this. This is I feel like a hydrogen nerd. It's fun. No.
Dinner being fun, is there anything else we need to
No.
know?
I know. Thank you guys. The conversation is robust and I appreciate your guys' insight. Thank you.
Of course.
We're actually,
Castro, just a little bit.
we're actually at public comment.
Yeah,
We have
we're
public
gonna
comments
comment now.
later, right?
Or public comment now, or whatever
no.
the mayor
Yeah,
wants
we're
to
at
do.
it.
Okay, public comments.
There you go.
Hey, is this thing on?
Yeah.
So Jack, can I just ask, from your understanding, yeah, this is right at you, because you're one of the smartest people in the room, of a room full of smart people. Do you think it's going to focus on hydrocarbons instead of hydrolysis if it gets funded, if anything gets funded going forward? Do you think they're going to focus on funding for the oil company pathway to hydrogen? That's my question.
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me just say that it seems to me that energy is a topic of interest to the current Congress and to our administration. Domestic energy is important and is a focal point. And that's one of the reasons why these hubs, I think, still have pretty strong support. On the other hand, the limiting of spending on 45V to projects that are built by 2025 suggests to me that the carbon intensity of the hydrogen is not as important. And that it may not be a determining factor for support of the hubs going forward. So what might happen is there might be more of a focus on any hydrogen that can be delivered at a right price with domestic energy is going to be the focus. Okay? This is just from basically two pieces of information. We want to support hubs. We think that energy and resilience are super important. And we know that there's going to have to be something that we do for the future. Okay? We don't want it to be based on carbon intensity.
just speak loud.
Exactly right.
Michael Lewis and Two Verity. Following what you're saying, Jack, yesterday, I believe it was the Senate Energy Committee updated the 45Q legislation. Now granted, it has to go through everything conference and come back and vote. But essentially what they did was they made enhanced oil recovery use of carbon dioxide an equivalent funding level with direct air capture, well, with regular sequestration of carbon, and then also direct air capture. So now the EOR, I might be a little off on the numbers, I think went from $60 up to the 85, and the direct air capture use for enhanced oil recovery has gone up to the 180 from 130, I believe. So I think your point that they're going to look at decarbonization as a potentially to give the oil and gas industry the opportunity, and that obviously in those circumstances, hydrogen would be the product that carbon's being pulled away from.
Followed all of that.
Let me say that, there are so many complicated needs that the energy economy has, and that people cannot even wrap their minds. I can't wrap my minds around all of the aspects of it. But when you think about it, there is a need for, in a very particular spot, having the storage and the delivery and the capacity and the ability to operate for weeks on end and things like this, that there are going to be, I think, lots of real needs for, delivering molecules. And we're going to have to do that for generations to come. So the kinds of stuff that we're talking about here is going to be super important for our energy economy going forward. And I think what's really cool about what First Republic Hydrogen is doing is that we're using some municipal capabilities for financing to do something that no one anywhere in the world, as far as I have seen so far, even in Europe, where they've been thinking about hydrogen and hydrogen cities and everything for years ahead of us, they still haven't gotten to this point of let's use these authorities that we have for financing things, for aggregating things, for public process, for vetting things and things like that. This is the first place it's doing. So I think this molecules that municipalities can trade in. This is really, really a cool idea.
It's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Question. Who thought of this?
Cool idea.
Yeah, exactly. Let's do it.
You did.
I don't think so. We haven't even started charting. I think it was you.
Yeah.
I'm sort of like Musk. I take other people's ideas and steal them.
Anyways,
Isn't that
it's
what he
cool.
does?
Well, and then figure out a way to make it happen. Yeah.
All right. I think the sooner we have some type of relationship with somebody that can package this and hand it to a company, the quicker we're going to be moving. But know that that's coming. Okay. And table, the people you know, I mean, that shouldn't be a problem. All right? Good. Thank you. You got anything else? Excellent. Thank you. You are moving quick, guys. Thank you. SWOT yet?
What?
A SWOT, where you're, what is it?
Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats?
Yeah.
Not as that. I mean, we've done some real analysis on our business plan. I don't know that we've done it as a SWOT. We've got a business plan, which you guys all have, that kind of identifies what we're doing.
Closed session.
Oh, no closed session.
Oh, there's no closed session? Okay, good.
Just a note, we put those on there regularly just in case. So we agendize them, just in case we need to go back
That's
there.
smart.
The next regular meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, July 17, 2025 at 2 p.m. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.